This is one of the pie lines run by Petersville Bakeries. In health and safety terms, it's typical of the food processing industry, and many women have been off work with injuries. Carla Gilias is the health and safety representative.
The injury statistics are that there are a lot of injuries in the wrist, the upper arm, the shoulder, and mainly the upper bodies of the ladies that are working on the line.
Traditionally, manual handling injuries are associated with lifting heavy weights. We think of back injuries or strains. But there are many other ways men and women workers can be seriously injured by manual handling activities. Some of these can lead to occupational overuse syndrome. Working fast can cause injuries. So can frequent bending and twisting. Reaching out too far. Gripping. Small wrist movements. Repeated impacts. And simply doing the same thing for too long. The injuries tend to occur in the soft tissues, the delicate structure of the muscles and tendons. And you'll find workers injured by manual handling in just about any workplace in the food industry.
Γιατί δούλεψα αρκετό καιρό εδώ και με τα μπόξα ήταν σκληρά, το χαρτόνι που έβανα μέσα και κατάλαβα με πόνεσε το χέρι μου ψηλά και κατόπιν ο πόνος κατέβηκε παρακάτω και πήγε στο τέλος και έβγαλα ένα alarm.
From my job, because I work stacking the boxes and turning too, and I have problem with my knee and with my wrist too.
That's a bar chart which is demonstrating the injuries by each department, and as you can see, the packing department is much the larger bar on that bar.
Carla is attending a regular meeting about manual handling with management and her shop steward.
The other one shows you more that in the packing area is the most hazardous of the whole plant. And it really shows
It is the first part of a process which will minimise the manual handling injuries in her area.
At this meeting, we are identifying the major injury statistics on a particular line within the packing area.
At the end of all this process,
besides the injury statistics, the group is discussing their practical experiences and general impressions of the line.
That's the top priority in the first phase of the manual handling program. In this industry, it's well known that there is a high incidence of manual handling injuries, and what it does is it confirms the industry experience in terms of manual handling. It's illustrated in hard facts, a situation which people have talked about for a long time.
Legislation about manual handling all around Australia now uses basically the same approach. It's in the national standard, state and territory regulations and codes of practice. The legal framework establishes a formal process with 3 stages: risk identification, risk assessment, and risk control. It's a simple process as long as you plan it out and set timelines. Danny Pridden is a health and safety rep at McCain's. Danny is carrying out a risk identification on the meat slicing operation. He already has a good idea of the trouble spots from the injury statistics and preliminary discussions.
He's handling the form more than 1 hour at a time.
It's very important this research work is carried out on the line, not in the office.
Manual handling on it. There. His forward region 30 centimetres.
And it's vital to get the experience and opinions of the people actually doing the job.
In the past, we have looked at problems on the line and gone away, made a few mental notes in our head. With the new system, it is recorded, written down, and we can pass it on to others in a systematic approach.
Well, the difference is that since the manual handling assessments have been introduced, management are quicker to recognise the ergonomic problems that do exist and come up with solutions to solve the problems at a much faster rate.
At this stage, health and safety reps are using a risk identification checklist. It shows whether any particular job is a likely risk. If it is, they move on to the next stage.
We will be doing a manual handling risk assessment using the risk assessment checklist that we've used before, and we will then look very closely at the job.
Once again, the risk assessment is carried out at the job. You will need to carefully watch how it's done and take notes.
Sinon, what part of this job do you think is the worst part, the hardest part of this job? Would you say, what was it?
This belt, too fast.
The belt's too fast?
Yeah, before slow it's all right.
Right.
Whatever problem they get.
It is important here that Kumar Rasia, the supervisor, is involved. His role is part of the formal process.
If you stick to the forms, the guide, the processes that are outlined in the code, then you can't go wrong, because they provide a framework for which the workplaces can work together in consultation with all parties that are involved in the workplace, including the health and safety rep, the employees and supervisors.
The major benefit of a systematic approach is, I think, that you perhaps identify the less obvious things. With a non-systematic approach, it is easy to identify the obvious issues. The approach taken with this process perhaps identifies the more subtle things that you may miss in a general observation.
I've brought with me some plans so we can show you what we intend doing on line 2 in particular. Now, we identified 2 areas as...
With the information which has been gathered and put onto the forms, you can move on to the last vital stage of the process. Risk control should be carried out in these stages. Redesign the equipment or system of work. In other words, eliminate or reduce the risk by changing the job. If this isn't practical, try stage 2. Provide mechanical aids or devices that reduce the risk, together with training in their use. And again, if that is unsuccessful, move on to stage 3. Provide particular training to reduce risk. Job rotation is one control measure used in almost all food processing plants. You have to be careful, though, that the rotation actually allows you to change your movements. It's all too easy to move around almost identical positions. In most plants, the men and women rarely overlap jobs. This means that both sexes have a very restricted range of possibilities for rotations. To make job rotation work, it will be necessary in many places to break down this traditional division of labour. One very typical job which can cause injuries is palletising, where weights are carried awkwardly. It's easy to damage your back or end up with shoulder injuries. Here's one solution to the problem. This is a new automatic palletiser, but it's a complex high-technology solution. Some people imagine that ergonomic improvement always means lots of capital and job loss. This idea is false, and here's an example to prove it. Here is a home video recording of a job which was very uncomfortable. See how the operators were constantly making the same small turning movement, which is particularly bad for your hands. Add this simple pin to the mechanism and the cheese is turned by itself. The job has become visual inspection, and there are many other examples where comparatively simple changes have made a job much safer.
Originally this job was performed with a scoop fed onto the line. Now it's performed by a hydraulic tipper.
This piece of equipment is a pallet lift. What it has got is 2 sets of springs on the bottom of it and a scissor action, and it maintains the pallet height to waist level.
This is one of the new chairs we're experimenting with. We're hoping to get them for all the girls on all the lines. They're much better than what we have at the moment.
The hydraulic jack is the most important piece of equipment. It can be worked at a workable height.
The good thing about this table is we use it when there is an overflow, but when there is no overflow, we can put the table away.
This is a mechanically aided packing station. The packets are raised from the platform and it's presented to the packer on a waist height level. And all the packer has got to do is to slide the packets into the box and just push the box down the line where it gets packed onto a pallet.
There is one basic principle that underlies this whole system for health and safety improvement. It is a process of consultation. The role of the health and safety representative is specified by law. The employers are responsible for providing a safe place of work. The reforms will, in the long term, also save money. The unions look after the collective interests of their members and tie reforms in each workplace into an industry-wide agenda. Action on health and safety issues is gathering momentum. So how do the various players feel so far?
The general benefit of cooperation is that everyone becomes involved through a process of assessment and identification of the risks in finding the solutions to those problems.
Well, the unions provide the drive for change in the workplace and that ensure that those changes represent the interests of the members in the workplace. They provide the support, backup and follow-up needed for health and safety reps to implement those changes in the workplace.
The sorts of changes that can be made is that more thought be given to new or introduced machinery. Instead of having to introduce the machinery and then solve a problem, this problem should be looked at more thoroughly before the actual machinery is introduced.
The management will have to know that we are not animals, we are human beings, we have feelings too. And I want, they want the product to come out, they want their injury statistics to go down, and we don't want to be injured.
We've come quite a long way, I believe, with this process, but we've still got a long way to go. I think the things that have been done to date have shown that not all problems are difficult to solve. You can improve situations without spending masses of money and get a positive result.
What difference does all this make to workers on the shop floor? The changes can be as simple and as useful as a chair. Here, Petersville Bakeries is trialling chairs, which can be adjusted to suit the worker. It's the first time they've been used. In Carla's eyes, they're a fundamental right.
Our basic right as an individual and as a worker is to be comfortable on our workstation. If we're in pain, that means we're going to be injured sooner or later. Our basic right is to be comfortable. We have to solve this problem.